Hey, Kath.
Hey Trace, how are you?
All right, how are you? It's freezing here. Shockaroo. I think we
Yeah,
keep saying that.
yeah, it's like 12 degrees here. It's cold.
Oh my
Not that
God.
I've left the
Enough.
house, so I don't know. It's entirely I have
I
I
know.
have not left the house, so it's I'm fine.
Same. Same. Well, tonight I figured we would. So, just for everybody who's listening, Kathy doesn't know what the topic's going to be tonight. Sometimes she does, sometimes she doesn't. But let's see. Let's see if she
Even
likes
when
it. But
I'm presenting, sometimes I don't know what it is. I don't know what's going to come
often
out. I don't know what's going to come out of your mouth, but full disclosure, I rarely know what's going to come out of mine. So,
it's channeled.
yes.
Which we could do a whole episode on, but that's
Yeah,
not what the
definitely.
topic is tonight. The topic tonight is not an unheard of one, but we'll maybe, do a little spin on it or a little twist, and it's haunted dolls.
Hmm, awesome.
So I
Excellent.
know, Kathy, you know a ton more,
I
far
I
more
have a
than the
I
average
have a
person.
few. I have a few.
You would be, I would say above the mean in terms of knowledge
Yeah.
of haunted
Yeah.
dolls, probably far above.
I
But
definitely skew it, you know? If I'm in your group, I'm gonna skew that line.
I know. But tonight I figured we'll do we'll talk about haunted dolls in a few, from a few different angles. Just kind of like the commercial aspect and how popular they are, just touching on that. We'll touch on the question of why are dolls so likely to be haunted, supposedly, purportedly. And then we'll even talk a little bit about the psychology of what makes dolls creepy.
Mm.
Because I'm sure I know for a fact there are people who don't find dolls creepy. I find dolls kind of universally creepy. I would not call myself a doll person.
Yeah, I mean, I
Uh,
I
you know,
personally find them I have always, even as a kid, I found them creepy. I just think they're
sorry.
weird. And I think I'm not judging you, but if you like dolls, you're a weirdo.
You
Oh,
are.
just
Yeah, I think
full
you might be.
disclosure,
I
I
think it's okay
judge
to
you.
be
Yeah.
judgy.
Yeah, I'm gonna
Yeah,
judge you.
I
If
I
you like them,
I I don't get it.
you don't have to like, and
And yet
even
you
if they're
have a
not haunted.
basement.
Yeah,
You have a
but I do
basement
like
full of
but I like
creepy
haunted
dolls.
things, right? You know what's funny? Because I find creepy's different for me. Like, I find them
Okay.
creepy, meaning like I find it creepy, like an adult man having like a bunch of, like
I
dollies.
don't know where we're going with
No, I
this.
mean, that's creepy to me, but like the idea of them being haunted is less creepy. It might be more scary, but it's less creepy than. So I
I
guess
might
it's
go
all
with you on that.
terms. Yeah, I guess it's all, semantics or how you argue.
I'm sure we can tell a few anecdotes along the way here. But getting into the haunted doll topic, I think anybody who has been at all curious or owns a computer may have searched for haunted dolls at one point. So today, just to do a little, check in, I looked on eBay. And as of right now, there are over 6,000 listings on eBay specifically for haunted dolls. Now,
Right.
that's not for haunted objects. There are a ton of those. I almost think that the 6,000 eBay listings is low. I don't know if many of them have just sold out. But what's interesting is that a lot of these dolls are specifically described as evil, using that
Hmm.
word, or demonic.
Right.
Um, Also interesting to me, maybe other people will get this, but a lot of the ones that are the creepiest looking, like no eyes or just clearly unsettling, use demonic in the title, have over a dozen watchers at any given time. People watching the item and are in multiple carts. So a lot of people have put this doll in their carts while they've looked
They
for other
just
haunted
can't pull
dolls.
the trigger. They're like, "We're going back and forth." I just can't pull the trigger. It
Like,
is
what if it's
interesting
not
on
the creepiest
eBay.
one?
Yeah, oh, it might not be really demonic. Um, uh, you have on eBay though, the reason why that number is low is because they're cracking down on
Oh, wow.
selling selling things that are purported to be haunted or using haunted as a selling point. Mainly because it's A lot of it is BS. Yeah, so mainly because there's very little way to prove that a doll is haunted, and so you get a lot of people who are like, "Wait a second, this doll isn't demonic. This doll is just nasty." Or, like, so eBay has cracked down on haunted, on the selling of objects purported to be haunted, or at least using that terminology.
So interesting, right?
Yeah.
And yet some just are haunted enough to sneak by.
Yeah, yeah.
Their
Well,
cloak
that
of
you have to get caught. You have to get caught. So you have to get caught in the algorithm. Someone has to turn you in. Something has to, or maybe they really are demonic and that's how they're getting away with it. They're getting past the algorithm.
That's what I was thinking, actually, that
Yeah.
exact thing, which is
Ooh.
crazy. But, like, in all seriousness, like, I don't know if you've ever tried to return something on eBay. You can do it. It's not always
Mhm.
that easy, but, like, how does one what's the return policy on something described as haunted?
All
Because
sales are final. That's the
final,
return
okay.
policy. All sales are buy a carpe, it's like all sales are final, buyer beware,
Yeah, and final could mean anything.
Yeah.
We don't know.
Ooh.
Ooh. A lot of these dolls, by the way, are well over $100, which for your average person is a lot of money to spend on a second-hand doll that's not technically a collector's item, I would imagine. But yeah, Kathy, you are the expert in this room on famous haunted dolls like
Mhm.
Robert the Doll and Annabelle, and there's quite a few more. But we've just alluded to this. I think dolls are universally considered to be creepy. There are those exceptions, like you said, even like adults who amass quite a collection of, I'm going to say, unnerving looking dolls, not because they're unnerving, but to them, they're appealing, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. I
And there's
think
something
listen, I
that
don't
is
wanna
creepy about that.
I don't wanna, just across the board judge people who have a collection of dolls for whatever
Collection. Yeah.
reason. For whatever reason
Yeah.
they love them as children, and they represent, and because dolls do represent different things to different people. Um, but I
And
do
we'll get into
think
that.
that, I do think, like, if I would say this, if you're listening to this and you're getting a little bit defensive about it,
Stay tuned.
maybe
Keep
wait,
listening.
it's like, well, first, you're probably gonna be a lot more offended, but if you're getting a
By the end
little
of the
bit
show.
if you're getting a little defensive, then maybe look at your reasons for having all those dolls. But if you have a collection of dolls and you're like, "No, I get it. I get why people find the idea of it a little bit creepy, but I
Yeah.
this it means something to me." There's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with it. It's a little weird. But just remember, on the outside of it, we don't all understand it. So,
It
but it
makes
is
it
funny
harder, I
because
would think,
go ahead. I'm
to,
sorry.
no, I'm just thinking, like, if you're on, like, a dating profile and you have a bunch of dolls in the background, that probably narrows the
Well,
pool
I
of
will say it
potential
makes it a lot
mates.
easier for the person that's considering dating you. They're going to be like this. You know what? I'm out. I'm out. Thank you. Thank
They
you
were
for
so cute
showing
until
the
the picture
Yeah.
with
I
the
remember
100 dolls in the background.
when I was looking for a house you remember years and years ago. I don't even think I had met you yet. But when I was looking for a house up in Provincetown, um, I had gone into one of the houses up there, and they have a lot of three-season houses, which are like these little cottages, and I think a lot of them have been converted into four-season houses now. But this
Yeah.
one was in this location, and it was really cool. And I remember walking in, and there was just all of these teapots, which I was like, "Okay, that's making me a
Alright.
little uncomfortable, but all right."
That
And
was
then there
it?
were all well, because there were a
Were the
lot of
dolls
tea
serving
well,
tea?
not yet, but there were a lot of teapots, right? So you're in this, like, 200 square foot place, and every inch of it has a teapot or a knife, right? So,
You know what? That's you got me there
I was like, I
because they
feel
don't really go together
and also, you're super interesting, sir,
in teapots and
but
knives
not
and
in a
dolls.
good way. You know what I mean? Like, you're interesting in one of those ways of, like, I'm writing this blockbuster horror film. and it's gonna be about you.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like that kind of a thing. But he also he actually did have dolls, and actually he was very funny, but I will tell you, it knocked the house out of consideration. Like, I
Oh, yeah.
probably would have gotten it anyway, but I was like, "No, there's something buried under those floorboards." Like, if that's what he's showing, I can't even
That is
imagine what
true.
he's hiding. You know what I mean? So,
You're thinking like a psychologist.
yeah. Listen, I'm
What are
just
you
thinking like
not
a
telling me?
survivor. I'm just thinking like a survivor, right?
I'm thinking like I wanna make it out
Yeah,
of here.
I'm thinking like I saw Silence of the Lambs. I get it.
I'm out.
Yeah, I'm out. And because of that,
Well,
I'm out.
so we will get to why people, like some of the, evolutionary and psychological reasons why most people, lots of people will find dolls creepy. I think rightfully so. But before we get to that, I want to touch a little bit on why are dolls so likely to be haunted if it is that they can be haunted? And we're going to operate on the premise that they certainly can. So, I mean, you know of Rosemary Ellen Guiley. She's a very well known, paranormal author, and she's been on a lot of shows. So she had this blog on why are dolls so likely to be haunted? Of course. So, just to kind of summarize, these were all pretty much reasons that you'd be like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. But, the first one, somewhat benign, but we have strong emotional bonds to dolls. Like you were saying,
Mhm.
some people think of them as their children. We infuse them with a kind of lifelike energy, our emotional energy, right?
Yeah, mhm.
And they can be human substitutes for all kinds of people at all kinds of ages for all kinds of reasons,
But
especially little
primarily for
kids.
children, yeah. I mean, that's why we
Yeah,
give them a doll is to
for
teach them.
comfort.
Yeah, and to be like, "Here is the receptacle of a lot of your emotions."
So, one thought is that they're absorbing just our energy. And so maybe what we're feeling is human energy. That's just
Mhm,
kind of like grafted onto the doll. I don't know. Another one is that people may deliberately, purposefully transfer their energy to the doll, like where the relationship. This is kind of my own kind of going a little step further. Is that they need the doll to be more human than it might technically be, for a variety of reasons, right? And so the intensity of that emotion might create some more kind of intense emotion and energy in the doll. I don't know. It's also possible, or one thought is spirits, like low level spirits, not terribly evolved ones, but may wind up taking up residence in the doll. It is like a lifelike vessel. One of the other things Mary Ellen Guiley says is she thinks that, it could be a confused soul. Somebody dies suddenly, or they're not ready to go, or they're very ill. And then instead of their spirit automatically moving on, it kind of attaches to this thing that is, humanoid, if not human.
humanesque,
Yes, that too.
humanish.
Humanish. There are also dolls that are deliberately used in various types of ritual or spell casting to invoke something, to be a stand in for someone for better or worse. That may either attract something or, again, infuse some sort of energy. And maybe it's more than human energy into the doll. And I'm adding, you see these old dolls that, yeah, my hair's standing up in not a good way, but they're made with human hair, or they're made with actual baby clothing, or, sometimes might be that it's just a living person is like, here, I cut my hair and let's put it on the doll. I don't
Yeah,
know, or hair is harvested for that. But sometimes maybe it's that, back in the day, somebody's child passed and,
mhm.
this is a way to kind of maintain some sort of connection. So lots of reasons why spirits could be attached to dolls. And we're not only talking about human, we're talking about maybe things that aren't quite human. Who
Well,
knows?
I think that's a really important distinction when you use the word spirit, right? So I think it's important to differentiate between a human spirit and spiritual energy,
Yes.
which might be elemental, it might be in other words, in other words, energy, not necessarily a human being, but energy that is an entity of some sort. And I think that's a
Like a
really
conscious
important thing.
energy.
An entity,
Yeah.
an entity
Yeah.
that
Not just
so
residue.
and not and so when we say spirit, I think it's really important to differentiate between the idea of a spirit of a human being and spiritual energy from another type of entity, because I am definitely I have very strong opinions about how and why dolls are, and Rosemary was, I think, a great researcher. Unfortunately, she has passed away, but she was a
Yeah.
great researcher. And I think she was, she delved into a lot of different things and a lot of different ideas. She wrote lots and lots of books. So,
Yeah.
I may differ with her, but I definitely respect her opinion on a lot of things.
Yeah, definitely. An interesting person who wrote and said a lot of interesting, who spoke about a lot of interesting things. I did my little Google search, just kind of starting out like, why do we generally think dolls are creepy? Just kind of seeing what came back. And it's interesting because this Vice article actually interviewed, the author interviewed a bunch of scientists, which I think is great. So I wanted to just kind of really briefly distill down what some of them said about why dolls are creepy. So there's a cognitive neuroscientist who would be the perfect person to answer this question, actually, named Talia Wheatley, who's at Dartmouth. And she said that we find dolls to be creepy because it's related to the way our brains detect and pay attention to faces. We are very much wired to do that. So she has been using dolls in her research to investigate a simple skill that we all have, and that's true, but it's still a mystery, right? In the neuroscience world, and it's how exactly do we tell a who from a what? And it's interesting because in the age of AI and the age of, people talking about robots and robots taking the place of human beings in a lot of contexts and situations, not just like as a line worker in a factory. I mean, it's an important question. It's an unsettling one, but a doll's creepiness to us can tell us something about that process. So basically, just some of our listeners may know, some may not, but there's a lot of studies on how newborns process faces and other visual stimuli. So newborns will pay more attention to faces than to representations of faces where the has been scrambled somewhat. So it's not quite face like. It's been established that the brain shows activity in specific regions to any face in just 170 milliseconds. So it's like quicker than I could snap my finger. So we notice these things really fast, often unconsciously. And again, even babies notice faces very rapidly. But our brains aren't that picky. And that's what her research is talking about. So, like 2 circles, like you draw a smiley face, 2 circles and a curve. We see that as face-like. It will elicit some of the same responses in our brain that a face would, and that's kind of why we sometimes see or oftentimes see faces where there aren't faces. Like, I'm gonna make a joke and just say, like, when you hear about, like, the piece of toast that has Jesus's face
Yeah.
on it, there's, like I feel like that's, like, been in the Enquirer magazine, like, years past. I feel like that's literally a thing people have seen. But, like, you have a marble floor and it's got an irregular pattern, and your brain will automatically find the face-like kind of
Mhm.
constellations of marks on marble, and that's all they are. So in 2010, Wheatley showed Dartmouth students a series of images in one of her studies morphing from a doll to a human baby with many in between kind of stages. So basically, I want you to think about just like on a computer screen and a series of just faces, one after the other, and each successive face is more and more human, like a
Mhm.
baby, and less like a doll. And what Dr. Wheatley said is she said we knew that one endpoint was a doll and the other was a human being, but the question was whether there'd be any consistency about the point when people determined it slipped from looking like a doll to a person. And what they found is that people are really pretty specific about where that point is. So it's not at the halfway point where you can definitely see, and I'll post a link to the images, but you could see that at some point about the middle of this succession of faces, that now something's really looking more human. But people tended to need more humanness than just halfway. So the tipping point occurred when people were asked if the face, quote, had a mind or could form a plan, or was able to experience pain. So it's the point where they can recognize some sense of life in the face, not just the appearance of the structure of a face. And then so she asked Dr. Wheatley asked people, certain people, why they felt that way. And one participant said, well, the point that right now it's definitely human, it's when the doll started to look back at me,
Right.
which is a
Mhm.
little bit creepy. But
Right.
I think what this is suggesting to me, I'm just kind of extrapolating from this, but I think the dolls that we tend to find creepiest are usually, except with the exception of like Robert or Annabelle, which clearly don't look human, but those porcelain dolls that look almost human, that seems to be more unnerving for people than something that clearly isn't trying to be. And with dolls or other human-like objects that do a better job of mimicking what real faces look like, your brain is searching for a mind, but it isn't finding one. That thing that really makes us human. But, all along you're getting a lot of the same cues, eyes, nose, mouth, and so forth, telling us that something is alive, but we know it's not alive, and it's that knowing that contributes to the creepy factor. So there's a name for that phenomenon, and it's called the uncanny valley. And it's a dip in emotional response that happens when we encounter an entity that is almost but not quite human. And that quote is by Stephanie Levay, who's a psychologist who studies the uncanny valley. And that theory dates back to the 70s. I won't belabor the point, but we often feel uncomfortable when we see expressions on dolls or avatars or robots. This is all from the article, and I'll put the link to the Vice article, but that we wouldn't encounter in nature. And what they said in the article is that the thing that triggered the sense of unease most strongly is those faces where you've got an expression that is incongruent in some way. So what I mean by that is like they don't line up together. So the creepiest dolls and the creepiest faces tend to be ones where you have a happy smiling mouth and eyes that are angry or frightened.
Right.
So
Mhm.
and if you think about horror movies where it's like, I'm making this obviously unsettling face, but it's like there's something just off and you could see something trying to look like it's smiling, but it looks terrifying.
Well, I think the Annabelle doll is a perfect the movie doll is a perfect example of that, where that doll is intentional. It's very humanesque, but way more humanesque than the actual doll. Um, but it's
Absolutely.
intended to be to get under your skin. It is intended to be like that thing is so lifelike, but a little bit more, and it's intentional to make you feel uncomfortable.
So I'm going to tell you an anecdote, personal anecdote, not that, we're not going to belabor it, but, and then also about an episode that I saw of the Dead Files years back. You'll know which one I'm talking about that stayed with me, where I was like literally talking to the TV. Like, what's wrong with you? But anyway, the anecdote is, I mean, these people may very well have passed by now, but my parents used to know these two people from work who wound up getting married. And I think it was the second marriage for him and her only marriage. And so I think they were in their 50s when they got married. So I would have been, pretty young. I mean, maybe I would have been like 10 or 11. I don't even know when I met them. But I remember that this woman, like, I think they had a lot of disposable income, not to stereotype, but like that would be something that they would acknowledge pretty overtly. And she collected dolls, very expensive, very lifelike porcelain, beautifully dressed, baby dolls, I guess you would call them. And she might have had over 100 of them. I'm thinking could have been well over. And, they're beautifully displayed. They had beautiful accessories. They had beautiful hair. They had eyes that opened and closed. And I remember even as a kid thinking, "That is freaking creepy," and it's weird. This is just my and again, I'm not trying to be awful, but there was something that was unnerving to me
Mhm.
about a middle-aged woman who had spent a fortune on all of these porcelain dolls and just had them everywhere. So,
Right.
like, you couldn't go into their home, I'm sure, without feeling like you were being watched by all of these glass eyes. And I just I'm not trying to be mean again, but I think the majority of people, and now we know what the science is behind that, but would feel like there's something that feels uncomfortable about all of these stand-ins for humans on the shelf and all around this place.
Right.
That's just my opinion. I'm just
Yeah. Mhm.
editorializing.
Yeah. No, definitely.
Um, like I don't understand how that was comforting for her, but it was.
But I wonder if
Um,
there was a time when that became that way. You know what I mean? Like you said, the '70s, the uncanny valley. Because I wonder if people in the '30s or the '40s or people in the 1860s or what. Well, I mean, if you go back, dolls have always been a touchy subject. I mean, having a doll in Salem was very dangerous. Because if you had a doll, it was seen as being taking trying to be creative, trying to replicate God's work, and it would be, like if you had a puppet, it was grounds for being considered a witch. But you wonder, in like, the 1920s or the 1870s, did people feel dolls were creepy then, or is it kind of, as we have started to use them in our storytelling, that they've become that we are more uncomfortable with them.
I mean, that's a really good point because, yeah, this is prior to all the movies where dolls were potentially creepy. And this is what I'm kinda gonna say. This is my thought. Like, and again, it just kind of popped in my mind. People can take it or leave it, but I think with most things, even when we can't really define what's the line, because for
Yeah.
many things we can't, or it's hard to do. But I think it's like a matter of degree. So,
Mhm.
like, if I went into this woman's house and she's like, "Oh my goodness, I love these 2 dolls. I thought they were so pretty, and I have them on my, like, antique rocking chair over here," it wouldn't be for me,
Right.
but it would be 2 dolls or
Right.
maybe 5 dolls, which would still be creepy on her china cabinet or something. But once it's like 30, 40, 100 dolls, it just feels like now there's something different here. It doesn't seem like it's just I collect dolls, but
Mhm.
to a doll collector, that is exactly how it's gonna seem. So,
Right.
I just want to acknowledge that.
No, and listen, I felt weird when I saw the teapots, and they weren't even dolls. You know what I mean?
The
Like, there's a
knives,
point.
I can't believe the knives were
Well, they
mentioned
were.
second because
Yeah, because it was like the two of them together. But I mean, I think you're right. I think that, but I wonder, very specifically to dolls, when dolls became something unnerving for us, and not even in a large number. Because I remember being a kid and I was not freaked out by dolls. I was not. They weren't something that I was always that interested in playing with. But you know, it people had dolls. We played with dolls. And there wasn't I didn't feel uncomfortable with them. When I see them now, they do have a completely, because there has been this kind of explosion of discussion about haunted dolls. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Where it's become something, and
100%.
and and it's I will tell you, until 2012, there was one haunted doll that people talked about,
I'm gonna
I
tell you
mean.
why I'm laughing. Sorry. I look like I'm being possessed by a haunted doll. So, I Jay hates dolls, right?
Mhm.
He's a grown man who's not like a small person and like really under like I don't like dolls. He's probably like I don't think he could be in or I don't think he could stay in a house where there were like dozens of dolls. Like he couldn't do it. I'm not sure I could either. But I told my brother and his wife this, like I didn't really like at dinner or making a joke out of it or whatever. So they must have gone, this is years ago, to um I don't know, like a flea market or something. and bought some random, doll with the eyes that open and everything, and they mailed it to me as a joke, right? So I opened this doll and I'm like, "Holy crap." So but then, like, I have to send you these photos. If I find them, I'll post them. But, like, just as a joke, I wound up naming this doll Hildy, and I took, like this is like a just the work of a disturbed mind, but, like, I spent, like, an afternoon staging this doll in different places all over the apartment and taking photos, including with her. I named her Hildy. She's by, like, the knife block in the kitchen,
No,
and she's
it's like,
peeking out of
"Sure,
the
Tracy.
shower.
Sure, Tracy. Sure, Tracy. Those other doll people are weirdos." Meanwhile, Tracy's got a photo shoot with Hildy. "Listen, bring
It's like
Hildy
a
in. We're gonna do
three-hour
a"
photo shoot.
Yeah, exactly. "Oh, but it was
Yeah,
just for
it's a
fun.
photo of my cat
It
Petey
was
on the
just for
couch, and, like,
fun. It was
Hildy's
just for
right
fun."
behind her
Yeah, yeah,
looking,
yeah.
like, all scary. So and then I this is kind of awful, I had, like, a little yard sale and gave the doll away for free, and somebody was so excited to get it, and I'm thinking, I would not ever, like, pick up somebody's random doll that they're giving away. That's, like, a red flag right there, and bring it home to my kid. Like, okay, but Hildy is hopefully very happy with her new
Very happy
family.
in her new home.
Yeah, hopefully they're all okay. Maybe I'll post a few photos. But, so the last thing I wanted to say about this, uh, is do you remember that episode of The Dead Files? This is way back. It's like season 1. I think it's episode 4. It's when Amy Allen was still the medium on Dead Files. And it's the title of the episode very cleverly is called, Death and Dolls. Really, a lot of mystery there. Very creative.
Yeah.
So this is something that if you watch the episode, you would wanna find the woman and, like, snap her out of it. So the investigation took place at this home in Cramerton, North Carolina, and it's a very small home. And the woman calls because 'cause she's got, all this paranormal activity that's unsettling. Couldn't have been that unsettling because when Amy went there, she opens the door, again, tiny home, and this woman had, over 2,000 dolls, um, or, like, somewhere in the neighborhood of that, between 1,000 and 2,000. Honestly, over 1,000, I don't even know how
Yeah.
much worse it could
I mean,
get.
once you're talking about thousands, does it really matter? You know,
I
if
know,
it's
like,
1 or
over
2.
5. I told
Yeah.
you, I over 5, it's too much for me. But she called her house, like, the house of dolls, and she loves dolls and, was not wanting to get rid of the dolls, she wanted to get rid of the paranormal activity. So, of course, Amy Allen goes in and is like, "Girl, what's, like, with all the dolls?" Basically, because Amy Allen said the dolls were vessels for the dead. Right? And I guess this woman must have I don't even remember the episode that well, but I don't know if she had an awareness of this, but she was concerned for her 9-year-old daughter, whom she named Salem, I guess. I don't know. I'm getting this from the web now. I'd
I'm
have to go
getting a
back and watch it.
theme. I'm getting a
I
theme
know.
here, it seems like
I
maybe there might be something,
you
it
might
seems
have
like
thought
she might
something
be
might happen.
aware of something or might have been inviting certain things or, been very invested in
100%.
something. Yeah.
Oh my god. But apparently the kid, the 9-year-old daughter Salem, supposedly, if this is accurate, was experiencing paranormal activity and showing an interest in death. Now, this is your 9-year-old child. So Amy Allen
I
said that the
wonder
dolls weren't
why.
yeah, really. Amy Allen said the dolls were indeed acting as conduits for spirits and that the home was formerly a pest house. I have to go look up what she meant by that, but I
A
don't
pest
remember.
house would be a sick house. So if
Okay.
and I'm assuming because it's in the United States that a pest house would have been a place where if smallpox was in the community, they might have put all of the small because they would quarantine into one specific place. So you don't really hear that. You don't hear that term that much in the United States. You hear it a lot in Europe. Um, but
I
a
love that you
pest
know that.
house. Well, I've visited pest houses in Germany.
Of
Um,
course you have.
well, it's really fascinating history because, um,
I'm just saying your average person probably wouldn't have had that on their,
yeah, well, that was a
bingo
bucket
card.
list for me. I mean, I've been to a few of them, but also when you go to Europe, they have they have these oh god, what do you call it? Like monuments in town squares. and they are monuments essentially thanking God for getting rid of the plague. Right, so it's like we went through this
Okay.
terrible thing. We're going to go through this. So you would have like a pest house, and you would have a a pest monument to. But in the United States, generally speaking, the only two diseases that would lead to that would be yellow fever and smallpox. But definitely because you isolate both of those. So certainly yellow fever, and you know people are not getting out of that. And smallpox, some people might have survived. But a pest house would have been a place where okay, everybody got sick, let's send them in there because everybody's already sick in there. Um, Interesting.
So I'm assuming what Amy was trying to say, and again, I have to go back and rewatch the episode if I can find it, but that those spirits maybe were inhabiting a lot of the dolls. I don't know. Like we should. I'll put a poll on our YouTube. But what do you all think? I mean, lots of dolls, good, not so good. Is there a number up to which it's
Yeah.
like not
Is
creepy
there
and
a
then it
number
becomes
where it
creepy?
becomes not normal? Is there
Like the
is there
teapots,
yeah, yeah, dozens
like
of
the knives and the teapots. Oh my goodness.
I would
So
say
yeah,
that
so
if
that's it.
I would say that I mean, listen, like some of the more famous haunted dolls, I think people who listen to our podcast probably are familiar with some of the more famous ones, but right up until the like 19 I would say that I would say until 2012 there was one super famous haunted doll, and then you had the Conjuring films start, and you had kind of the creation of Annabelle as this, hugely popular, well-known haunted doll. And now it's like every doll is haunted. Um, I have over 100 dolls that people have
Ooh.
donated because they believe them to be haunted. There is no yeah, no, I mean, they drop them off, or they say, "I don't want them anymore," and they just
Yeah, I
want
don't know
them
if
out
it's
of
a
the house.
donation. Donation sounds like just such a benevolent thing to do, and
Well, it
people are
is
like,
though,
"Please
because I
take it,
have
it's
to
ruining my
accept it.
life."
Yeah, but, I mean, they've
It's
dropped them off.
benevolent on your
Um,
part, you know?
yeah, in fact, I just did an investigation with Adam, the other day at Sanctum, and we did it on Facebook. I don't even know, it was Facebook Live or something like that, and, and there's a small section of haunted dolls up there, and a lot of people, people just really react to the haunted dolls in New Jersey. The Paranormal Museum was just recently was a part of something called Free Museum Day in New Jersey. So we have a new governor as of today. Woo-hoo,
Woohoo.
Mikey Sherrill was just and whatever your politics are, listen, I'm just happy to see our processes moving forward in a peaceful kind of way. And Mikey Sherrill's inauguration was today, and as part of her inaugural celebration, she did something called Free Museum Day, which was on the 17th of January, and they made certain museums throughout the state free, and they reached out to the Paranormal Museum and asked us to do that. And we were able to participate in that, which was terrific. But I've already gotten feedback from people. People have already given us reviews and have already emailed us, and every single one of them talks about the dolls. And Tracy, you've been in my museum. The dolls are not
I
the
have,
primary, but they are not the primary part of our museum.
but
They're
they're
one
compelling.
exhibit. They're very compelling. And people go in already having feelings about them, and you're one of those people. If I handed a doll to you, you'd be like, "Listen, I'm not sure if it's haunted, but I'm not taking any chances." You know what I mean? So, and you know what I mean? And I have a lot of dolls, and there are two or three that have very positive, vibes about them, and positive stories. And some of them are intentionally haunted, which means they were created with the intention of spirit being attached to them. I personally, in contemporary society, there is no positive reason for a doll to be haunted. It is never going to be a positive thing. That is different, however, from a doll having energy associated with it. Because if you have this beautiful little doll and a little boy or a little girl just fills it with love, and you know, 100 years later, people pick it up and feel happy, that's not a haunting, but it is energy. But when you're talking about a haunted doll, there's no positive reasons for it to be
No,
haunted.
my God.
There are two things in the museum that people react to, I would say viscerally: Ouija boards and dolls. There's some, and there, and I think, to the point that you were talking about why we think they're creepy, it's because they look like us and they are not us. And there's
And
something
it's
about,
clear.
and we know it. And like, there's something new in and I won't say it's super new, but one of the things that people find very, very upsetting these days is something called a mimic. And it's an or a doppel, like, if you're looking at a visual thing, it's a doppelganger. But a mimic is some type of an entity that can literally just mimic the voice of somebody else. And so I think we feel the dishonesty of that, or we feel the duplicitousness of that. And I think it really disturbs us. It really disturbs us. With dolls, though, we're making it. Like, we
Yeah.
manufacture them, we create them. Um, and
We
me, dolls don't. But I will say, the one of the things in the museum that I'm creeped out by is a doll. There is one doll that I'm very creeped out by.
should you share which one, or do you want
Oh,
people to
we already
guess?
have. No, we already have. We've talked about him. I think I've told that
So
story
which
in the
one?
past. He's not on display. And he was given
Still? Okay.
to, yeah, he's not on display because I'm not super comfortable with. I have displayed him in the
That
past,
okay.
but I'm not super comfortable with displaying him. Um, he's chased. He's the one that made the noises going up the stairs and chased me
Oh,
out of paranormal. But I'll
yeah,
find
I
a
could
picture
see
of him.
why.
I'll find a picture of him
I
so
don't
you
even
can
know if
post
we
that.
should do
I'm
I'm
not
not even
afraid of
sure if
that.
we
I mean,
should do
listen, I'm not afraid of that. But
okay. Alright, then I will
He's
post it.
not Robert the doll, Robert the powerful doll, where you can't even take a picture of him. He comes after you.
Hopefully, he's not taking that as a challenge to, like,
Well, we'll
show his stuff.
see. We'll see. I'm not here.
Ser
Unless he's listening to this podcast, he doesn't know what I'm saying.
uh, well,
So
at the
he's
Paranormal
400.
Museum, this does play day and night. He
Yeah, that's
probably
true.
is
Actually,
listening to
that's true. It plays 24/7.
Oh
Um,
my god,
but
so
no,
our
I get
energy is
it.
in the museum.
People get creeped out by dolls. They really do.
No,
Even if they're not
100%.
haunted, they're creepy. So,
Yeah, and to
you
me,
know what
they
I'm gonna
are
do? I'm gonna have a doll made of you, so you can get creeped out by
by my
yourself. Yeah,
own yeah,
like
I
that.
might
Like,
already be creeped out by myself.
yeah,
I've
exactly.
had enough creepy experiences to be weirded out by myself,
I do have
Kathy.
to say, I would love I would love a Tracy Muppet. That would be really cool.
Aw. Well, you
Yeah, that
know
would be
what?
cool.
If we ever do create some merch, we can have some contests, and
Yeah.
then people can win a Tracy Muppet. The only thing is I don't want anybody doing any rituals with it, sticking any pins in it, none of
Or
that.
doing
So
or
now I'm
literally,
not gonna
or
send you my
yeah, I was
doll.
gonna say, listen, there's a lot worse that they could do that's ritualistic, and end up on YouTube. And they're gonna, do pictures like you did
I'll
with
be
the other
sold on
doll.
eBay.
Yeah, that's haunted Tracy doll on eBay. Yeah.
Well, all kinds of things to think about. Well, Kath, thank you for weighing in with all of your vast, seriously, doll knowledge.
Yeah, my doll
Um,
knowledge.
seriously, and listen, peeps, beloveds, we want to know what you think. Leave us a comment. As
Yeah.
psychic as we are, we're it's harder to tune into
I
everybody's
can't read
thoughts.
all of your minds. I can't
Yeah, I
read
mean, we're
all.
like kind of busy,
Yeah.
so
Got these dolls to run away from.
like the episode, tell a friend.
Please
Click that little
follow.
subscribe button.
That's right.
Follow us. Yes.
Follow us.
Leave us a little comment and review. Come on.
Come on, get
Let's
on
go.
it.
We're gonna
Let's
make
go.
dolls of you.
That's right. That's right. I'm gonna release the dolls.
We're gonna release the Kraken, the
I'm gonna
dolls,
release
not
the
the Kraken.
dolls.
But we're gonna
Release the
release the
dolls.
dolls, Chucky and
Yeah,
Annabelle
that's true.
and Robert. Um, anyway, so nice to see you.
It's good
And
to see
until
you.
next time, Kathy and beloveds, stay curious.
Keep exploring.
Bye for now.
Bye, y'all.